All right, let's get to it on this Tuesday evening. It's the Valley's most in-depth weather forecast video. Of course, it's weather for Weather Geeks. It's been kind of an unsettled several hours across the Valley, but things are about to quiet down and stay that way for much of the next week, with one exception, which we will talk about later in this video. First, we're about halfway through the month of August here on the 15th day, and it's been a pretty active month by August standards, especially across a lot of the lower Great Lakes and into the Northeast. 4-5 inches worth of rain, fairly common across the region. When we zoom in and take a look at our local rain gauge numbers, not counting or taking into effect what we've had this afternoon, here's a look at where we stand. And some of the lower amounts, 2.5-3 inches in our northern viewing area, but 4-5 inches pretty common once you get down towards the 224 corridor and especially off to the south. Kokoros.org if you are interested in learning how to become a weather spotter, get yourself a rain gauge, check it every day, upload that data to the internet, and we have access to it then on graphics like this. Kokoros.org, the site to check out. Now, the airport has not been as active as some of the other places that we just showed you on that graphic. At the airport, we're only at 2.34 for the month. Now, that's still above average by 0.65, but that's one of the lower numbers across our region. We've had some higher totals, mostly south of I-80. Good cloud watching day today with a lot of cumulus clouds building and becoming, in some circumstances, cumulonimbus clouds. We've even had a couple of thunderstorms across parts of the region over the last few hours. Now, as of this recording at 7:05, not much more than a couple of showers in our TV market, but there's been a severe thunderstorm warning ongoing for a little while now up in Crawford County, PA. This thunderstorm has had a history of producing some wind. In fact, 54 mile per hour gust at the airport there in central parts of Crawford County around Meadville. Some tree damage, tree blown down, blocking a roadway. So that storm really meant some business, but that's kind of the exception. Most of us are not dealing with anything all that significant this evening. And, this is kind of an unusual setup for August. We've said that frequently of late, but to have a cutoff low like this lollygagging across the lower Great Lakes states, this is something we see a little more often as we get into late summer, into the fall season. We even had some water spouts up over Lake Erie today, something that doesn't happen very much in the first half of August. It's certainly a little more common as we get a little bit closer to the autumn season, but with this kind of anomalous setup, no surprise that we had a couple of water spouts sighted over Lake Erie today. Severe thunderstorm watch for parts of the mid-Atlantic down into the southeast this evening. Our forecast for the next couple of days, pretty quiet. Certainly quiet on Wednesday with a mix of sun and clouds. Comfortable temperatures, upper 70s to around 80. Now, Thursday will start bright and sunny. We'll see a steady increase in clouds later in the day. The next front looks a little faster now, so it looks like rain chances will really ramp up as we head towards sunset, 8, 9, 10 o'clock Thursday evening. Maybe even a thunderstorm. Now, that's not great news for the handful of high school football games we have across the area Thursday evening, but I'll tell you, Friday evening looks absolutely sensational. What a great forecast for Friday and the weekend we have coming up. We're going to keep a dry forecast for Wednesday, even though our model here shows a little green speck or two. I think we're dry on Wednesday with a mix of sun and clouds. We're dry through most of the daylight hours Thursday, but again, with the faster approach of this front as early as maybe 8 or 9 o'clock. The latest run of our model here even says 5, 6 o'clock. I think that's a little too fast, but by 8 or 9 o'clock, I think showers will become increasingly possible. Maybe some thunder, but all that's long gone by Friday morning, and we should be bright and sunny Friday afternoon. And actually, the pattern is going to go into kind of a mode here, if you will, that we really haven't seen much of this summer season, with a ridge, instead of parked over Arizona and New Mexico, becoming parked over Iowa and Nebraska and Minnesota and Missouri. And wow, it's going to be really hot in St. Louis and Minneapolis and Chicago and Oklahoma City, places like that. We won't be right underneath the ridge, but we'll be close enough to this ridge that we are going to pump in the heat, it looks like, during the first half of next week, probably flirting with 90 a couple of times during the first half of next week. Speaking of 90-degree days, of course, they usually peak in July, but we still usually, well, as far as the long-term average is concerned, see about a quarter of our 90-degree days in the month of August. We haven't had any so far this month. We've only had one 90-degree day so far this summer season. We average about 8. That's the 30-year average, but of course this varies a lot. We've had as many as 18 a couple of times in recent years, including 2012 and 2018. We had 15, I should say, in 2020, and 10 in 2022 just last year. But this year, just 1. Could we add maybe 1 or 2 onto that? It's going to be possible early next week. Looks like we're going to flirt with 90 anyway. I don't think we're going to be right underneath that ridge and close enough to the center of that ridge that 90s are guaranteed, but we're going to try to flirt with it a couple of times early next week, as a lot of school districts, I know some districts are starting this week and some even started last week, but as a percentage, I would say the majority of districts start next week. And the first half of the week looks pretty hot. We do see some cooler trends on some of the modeling for the second half of next week when more and more districts start kicking off the school year. We'll be talking about the high school football forecast, the start of the school year forecast, and everything else on 21 News and future editions of Weather for Weather Geeks. Thanks for watching on this Tuesday evening, and have a great rest of your night.